Township Zoning Hearing Board. I have some instructions I'll just read into the record. It's roughly 6 p.m., June 24th of 2012. It's the time and place set for the hearing on the application of Child Services, Inc. For the record, my name is Mark Marola. I'm the board solicitor. With us being the board members, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Werner, Mr. Lowry, and we have the I'll ask the attorneys to just introduce themselves and state their names for the record. So for the applicant.
My name is Sheila O'Rourke. I'm an attorney with Gable Craig House, and I represent Child Services.
Dwight Yoder, I'm also with Gable Craig House on behalf of the applicant.
Joan London with Southwestern Township Solicitor.
Okay, for the record, I'll note the following. The application of Child Services, Inc. was received on April 9th, together with the application fee. The hearing was scheduled to be held on June 1st. However, in the current situation, we had to postpone the hearing until tonight. Within the application, the applicant's requesting certain relief. It's an appeal from the determination of the zoning officer that the applicant's proposed use of the property is not permitted within an R1 zoning district due a variance pursuant to section 902.4 of the ordinance, or a special exception pursuant to 902.5 of the ordinance. Notice that the hearing was advertised on June 8th and then 15th, as noted in proof of publication. There are certain documents which we have marked in advance as exhibits B, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Exhibit B1 is the application with the attachments. Exhibit 2 is the proof of publication in the Reading Eagle. B3 is the certificate of posting, or rather the affidavit of posting. And B4 is the certification of mailing. The township ordinance and map, although not being physically marked, will be made part of the record. For the public that is here, the hearings are relatively informal. However, we have to certain practices to proceed in an orderly fashion. The hearing is being transcribed, or will be transcribed. So one person can speak at a time. If people speak over each other, obviously it is impossible for the stenographer to get the information down accurately. At the conclusion of each witness's testimony, members of the audience will have the opportunity to ask questions of that witness. However, the questions you ask relate to the testimony of that witness. And anyone who's wishing to make a statement or testify will have the opportunity to do so, but at the end of the applicant's case. So again, as witnesses testify, you may ask questions of the witnesses, but if you want to make a statement, there'll be a chance after the application's presentation is completed. We have the sign-in sheet at the front. If anyone missed that on the way in, you may sign in on the way out to indicate your involvement in the hearing tonight. The basic game plan that we would have tonight is the applicant has some witnesses. We will go through those witnesses. We intend to go until about 9 o'clock tonight if we have to. But obviously we're done earlier, we're done. The applicant will ask witnesses, questions of the witnesses. The township attorney, the board may have questions, and again, the members of the public may have questions. Because of the situation, having to wear masks and all that, and there's people behind me, when you make a statement, you'll have to just speak loudly so that they can be heard what you're saying. And you'll have to just state your name and then make your statement, again, because the way we're spread out, the court reporter can't see who's speaking. He'll just hear, for instance, he'll hear a male voice or a female voice. He can't put that down that it was so-and-so asking a question, which we need to do to have the record be clear. So just try and state your name loudly and ask your question so that the witness can answer the question for you. It's a lot of instructions, I know, but we'll try and do it that way. We do not anticipate finishing tonight because the applicant will give their testimony. The township has some witnesses as well. At the conclusion of tonight's hearing, again, if we're not finished, we will reconvene on August 26th, which is a Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, and we'll be in the same location here. Okay. With all that, I'll turn it over to you, Attorney O'Rourke, for your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
No.
Is that better? Good evening, everyone. As I said, my name is Sheila O'Rourke. I'm an attorney with Gable, Cradle & Hack. I'm joined here this evening with Dwight Yoder, another attorney in our office, and we represent the applicant, Child First Services. Child First Services was established in 1993, and it is a nonprofit organization that provides residential care services to children and youth. It has over 20 group homes in the state of Pennsylvania, including one right here in this township. It serves children who have been determined by the court to be dependent. And what that means is it serves children where a court has made a determination that they are unsafe in their home. Child First provides a home-like environment where these children can grow and thrive. It provides structure, support, 24-hour supervision. We're here this evening about the property at 448 Preston Road, where Child First operates a group home. You may know the property as Donkin House. For many decades, it has been operated as a group care facility. I believe it was started in 1940 and has been used continuously for that purpose. Mr. Leonardo is here this evening. He's the property owner and also operated the Donkin House as a group care facility for over 20 years. So you'll hear from him about how the property has been operated and how it continues to be operated for that same purpose. The only difference is that when Mr. Leonardo operated the property, it was for elders, and now it's for children and youth. But essentially, the use is the same. It's a group care facility for a group of individuals, unrelated, who require assistance with their daily needs. So Child First is here this evening asking for a number of points of relief from the zoning hearing board. And one is a determination that the use that Child First is doing, their group home use, is the same use that has always been done on the property. This is called a pre-existing non-conforming use. And you'll hear testimony regarding how the property has always been operated and how it's operated now. It's the same use, it's a different age group. We're also asking for a reasonable accommodation under federal law, the Federal Fair Housing Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Rehabilitation Act. These are federal laws that protect individuals with disabilities and specifically protect their right to live in the housing of their choice, just like anybody else. So because all of the residents of this home are children who have disabilities that qualify under the Act, we are asking for a reasonable accommodation from the zoning board so that they can live in the home where they'd like to live. As an alternative, we're asking for special exception approval for a substitution or an extension of a pre-existing non-conforming use. And finally, it's our position that the township would now be stopped from prohibiting Child First use. And what that means is that previously the township had expressly advised Child First that it could have its group home use on the property. Child First relied on that advice and expended significant monies in order to bring its group home use to the property. I thank you for your time and attention this evening, and at this time, I'll call our first witness, Paul Leonardo. I think you might need a mic, Mr. Leonardo, so.
Switch.
I do have pre-marked exhibit packets for the board, if it's okay for me to pass them out.
Sure, thanks.
Mr. Leonardo, could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Paul Leonardo.
Are you a principal of Perk Inc.?
Yes,
Does Perk Inc. own the property at 448 Preston Road, South Heidelberg Township?
yes.
When did Perk purchase the property?
1995.
And do you now lease the property to Child First?
Yes, I do.
Turning your attention to what I have marked as Applicant's Exhibit A, is this an aerial image of the property?
Yes, it is.
Is the property located at the corner of Preston Road and North Galen Hall Road?
That's correct.
And does the property contain approximately 1 acre?
Yes, just a little bit over 1 acre.
Is the property located in the township's low-density residential zoning district?
Yes, it is.
And could you describe the buildings that are on the property?
The main facility is a large residential home. There's a smaller home next to it and a 4-car detached garage.
Is there also a large parking area on the property?
Yes, yes, there is.
When you purchased the property in 1995, was it being used for a residential care home?
Yes, it was.
Turning your attention to what I've marked as Applicant's Exhibit 2, is this an article regarding the historic use of the property?
Yes, it is.
And was this article published by the local historical society?
Yes, they interviewed me and then published this.
Does the article state that the property started being used for a residential care facility for the elderly in 1943?
Yes,
And does the article state that the property continues to be used for this purpose until you bought the property in 1995?
yes, we took over from the former owners. Yep.
Before you bought the property, did you confirm with the township that the property could be used for a residential care home?
Yes, that was a prerequisite before we even got financing.
Turning your attention to what I have marked as Applicant's Exhibit 3, is this a letter from South Heidelberg Township dated June 23rd, 1995?
Yes, it is.
Does the letter state that the zoning ordinance was adopted in 1974?
Yes,
Does the letter state that the residential care home use on the property was established before 1974?
yes, it does.
And does the letter further state that the use is therefore a pre-existing non-conforming use that is permitted?
Yes, it is.
Was Duncan House ever used as a single-family dwelling?
No, no.
Beginning in 1995, did you operate a personal care home use on the property?
Yes, we did.
And in terms of demographics, were your residents elderly?
Yes, but actually, we even had some as young as 21, 22.
Did some of the residents have disabilities and special needs?
Yes, most of them did.
Were the residents related to you?
No, no.
How many residents would you have on average?
average probably around 12 to 15.
And what was the average stay for residents?
That really varies. Could be a week, could be 3 months, could be 3 years. It just depended on the individual.
How many staff did you have?
Usually ran 4 staff, and then I was involved in my work periodically. So.
Was there staffing 24 hours a day?
Yes,
And did staff provide supervision?
yes,
Did staff assist with the residents' daily needs?
yes,
Did residents eat meals at Donkin House?
yes,
Did they sleep at Donkin House?
yes,
Did residents treat the Donkin House as their home?
yes. Wonderful.
While you operated Donkin House, were the police ever called to the property?
Yes, they come.
For example, would police have been called if a resident was a danger to himself or to someone else?
Yes, that did happen on occasion.
And in fact, did that happen on multiple occasions?
Yes,
Did the fire department ever come to the property?
yes,
Did the fire company ever come for a false alarm?
yes, they did.
Was the care home use licensed by the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare?
Yes,
Was it licensed as a personal care home?
yes,
Are you familiar with the state regulations pertaining to personal care homes?
yes, I am.
Showing you what I've marked as Applicant's Exhibit 4. Is that the definition for a personal care home?
Very slow. Yes.
And could you just read that definition for everybody?
A premise in which food, shelter, and personal assistance or supervision are provided for a period exceeding 24 hours for 4 or more adults who are not related of the operator, who do not require the services or in or of a licensed long-term care facility, but who do require assistance or supervision in activities of daily living or instrumental activities of daily living.
Turning to what I have marked as Applicant's Exhibit 5. Is this a certificate of occupancy for the Donkin House?
Yes, it is.
Was it issued by the Department of Labor and Industry?
Yes.
Was it issued in 1980?
Yes, 6/30/1980.
And was it issued for a large personal care home?
Yes, LP, large personal care home.
Showing you what I have marked as Applicant's Exhibit 6. Is this a certificate of compliance for the Donkin House?
Yes, it is.
And was it issued by the Department of Public Welfare?
Yes.
When was it issued?
February 19th, 2014.
And was this issued for the personal care home use that you used to operate?
Yes.
In order to receive a certificate of compliance, does that mean that the Donkin House would have met the definition for large personal care home?
Yes, absolutely.
And it would have met the requirements of
All the counties, yes.
How long did you operate Donkin House as a residential care home?
Approximately 20 years.
And did you stop using the property for a residential care home in 2015?
Yes.
And would that have been around September 2015?
Yes, we actually, our last resident moved out in September, and child first took possession October 15, 2015.
Has the lease for Child First continued from 2015 until the present?
Yes,
Was it your understanding that Child First intended to use the property for a residential care home?
That was right from the beginning.
Sometime in early 2016, did any damage occur on the property?
Yes, we had a, major leak. We had a radiator, hot water radiator burst and flooded the whole building.
So would you agree that it was extensive water damage?
Oh my word, yeah. It was pouring.
Were the basic structural elements of the building harmed?
No, the structure didn't sustain any damage except moisture, which had to be dried out, which is quite a long time.
Was the damage remediated?
Yes, I mean, immediately, I, went down to the building, actually to check on something, and I came in and there was just water everywhere. I immediately called Child First. They were there that day, and the next day, they started cleaning it out, moving ceiling tiles, carpet, and everything else. It was immediate.
So was Child First responsible for the remediation process?
Yes, they were.
Did the remediation take a number of years?
Yes. It did.
Why did it take so long?
First, just emptying it, getting rid of all the debris. Then it was, getting insurance settlement, which took quite some time. And once they got the insurance settlement, then we had involvement, with some builders, scheduling builders is probably all you know. It's kind of a nightmare. So I know they used, a local company, I think it's called, Dolan, and very well known, but they are extremely busy, and so it took quite a while.
Would it be fair to say that the process was drawn out for reasons beyond the control of Child First?
Oh, definitely.
And throughout the remediation process, did Child First make consistent steps and progress toward repairing the building?
Yes, I periodically went down, checked what they were doing, talked to the builders, and on there with them.
Did Child First continue to pay rent throughout that time?
Yes, they did.
And were all of the renovations and repairs that were done consistent with using the property for a residential care home?
Yes.
Have you visited the property since Child First started using it for a food home?
Yes, I have.
Are you familiar with how Child First operates the food home?
Yes, I am.
How does Child First residential care use compare to the residential care use that you operate as a doctor?
They are extremely involved with the kids. My very first experience, the caregiver, one of the caregivers that was there, was very strict with the boys. Staff, a lot of interaction with staff, with the boys, and very well run in everything I could see.
If you were comparing the residential care home use that you ran at Duncan County to the residential care home use that Child First runs, what would be the difference?
Honestly, they're more involved than we are. They do spend a lot of time with the kids. They, that is their highest priority, is their care. A lot of our residents had some independence, but the activity level that Child First provides is far superior than what we do.
Similar to the use that you ran, does Child First provide assistance with daily living?
Oh, yeah, they 3 meals a day, laundry, if kids need anything, they provided, taking them on appointments, but basic care is exactly exactly what we did.
Would the only difference be the age of the resident?
That would be it. They're just younger for the most part, that was it.
Did you ever receive a copy of an enforcement notice related to the property?
I was aware of it, I don't remember getting it, but I was aware that that was in the works.
Would you say that the Donkin House property is located in a mostly residential area?
Yes, Karen Foundation has administrative buildings across the street. There is a church a couple of doors up, and then, Karen Foundation is also 2 blocks up Hill Hall Road.
Turning your attention to what I have marked as applicant exhibit 7. Is photo A a photo of the Karen Center property across the street?
Yes, it is.
Is that their administrative offices?
Yes.
Does Karen Center operate a residential addiction treatment center?
Yes, they do.
And does it treat kids and adults?
Yeah, all ages.
And is it correct that Karen's residential campus is located about half a mile from Donkin House?
Give or take. Yeah, a little bit less.
Is photo B a photo of part of the residential campus?
Yes, it is.
Would you agree that the campus is multi-acre?
Oh, mercy, yes. Very large.
Would you say that hundreds of patients live there?
I would guess, yeah.
Is photo C another photo of the residential campus?
Yes, it is.
When you operated Donkin House, were you aware of fire or police responses to the Karen Center?
Yes, that was fairly regular.
In your opinion, does child first group home use fit in with the residential nature of the neighborhood?
Yes, they're doing exactly what we were doing when they were different ages, exactly the same.
Does the group home use harm the neighborhood in any way?
Not that I know of, no.
Does it impair the reasonable use of neighboring properties?
No,
Does the use create traffic congestion or hazards?
no,
In your opinion, is child first use consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare?
yes.
Those are the questions that I have for Mr. Leonardo.
Good evening, Mr. Leonardo. Joan London, Township
Nice to meet you.
Solicitor. Nice to meet you, sir. I have some questions for you regarding your testimony to Ms. O'Rourke's questions. Is it correct that applicant exhibit 3, if you could turn to that, the letter dated June 23rd, 1995?
Yes,
And looking at the third paragraph, is it correct that the letter was from Dan Hutzel, who was the code enforcement officer at the time, refers to Donkin House as a nursing home or a convalescent home?
no, it says that it was used as a nursing convalescent home prior to 74.
So do you agree, though, that it does refer to the property being used as a nursing or convalescent home?
That's, prior to that, I don't really know. It's always been personal care to me. That maybe just be wordage that he put in there.
Okay, well, do you agree that Donkin House was used until 2015 as an elderly care home or a nursing home?
Elderly care, yes.
And the residents were elderly or physically disabled, correct?
They had disabilities, but they were all mobile.
But they were, for example, they they were individuals with disabilities, for the most part were elderly, is that correct?
Like I said, we had anywhere from 21 on up to, I think our oldest was 90.
With younger people who were there, were not, were they convalescing from an illness, for example?
They had some, challenges, psychiatric challenges.
They were not school-age children, correct?
I believe, yeah, they were out of school at that time.
Okay, so they weren't being transported, for example, to and from the local school?
No.
I'd like you to turn to Exhibit A4 in your packet. You agree that that's labeled 55 PA Code 2600.4?
Where is this? Hold on. Can she help?
Well, she can help you turn to the correct place.
Okay, for,
Yes.
oh,
She can't answer the question, but she can help you.
I'm sorry.
Find the correct
Okay.
place.
Title 55, Human Services.
Yes. Do you agree that that is part of Part 4, the Adult Services Manual?
Yes.
And I'd like you to turn to the second page of Exhibit A4. And is it correct that this refers to adults, 55 PA Code 2600? Looking at Roman numeral 1, do you agree that it is for 4 or more adults who are not relatives?
That's what it says, yes.
And you agree that that is not the same as children's services for children?
I guess it depends on what age you think an adult is.
Do you agree that an adult is someone who is over the age of majority and is not in school?
Yes.
And is it correct that the set of regulations that applies to child services, according to the Certificate of Compliance, is found at 55 Pennsylvania Code 3800?
I'm not sure.
If you look at the Certificate of Compliance under Exhibit A6, do you agree that 2600 applies to the Certificate of Compliance of A6 for personal care homes?
Yes.
And do you agree with me that the Certificate of Compliance that Child First has is under a different chapter of the Pennsylvania Code?
That I couldn't answer. Sorry, I don't.
Okay, hold on for a moment. Excuse me.
Under the same 26.
Hey, Joanne. Once you look at it, some more people came in. Are you guys having enough room over there? There's some other seats. Sorry. I can't really see around the corner. I didn't know if you're good.
We'll mark this as an exhibit, Township Exhibit 1, and then I'll provide you with copies of it.
Do you want to mark those?
Township Exhibit 1. Now represent a Certificate of Compliance for Denkin House 1. If I may approach the witness. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, is that labeled as a Certificate of Compliance for Denkin House?
Yes.
And do you agree with me that that is for the provision of services that is not the same as a personal care home for the elderly, and that is found under 55 Pennsylvania Code 3800?
That's what it says.
All right. So to shift gears, you referenced some police and fire calls when the use was a personal care and elderly care home. Other than, the occasional dementia or Alzheimer's case, was that the extent of the runaways?
No, we actually had a few incidences with residents in the building that the police would come to. A resident, the meds weren't quite, they had a reaction or something.
But there was no police involvement for residents getting involved in crime off of the property, correct?
We had one wanderer, it wasn't a crime, but he did leave.
Just one.
That one, yeah.
Okay. How many times a year, on average, were the police called to Dankin House when it was used as an elder care residence?
I wouldn't have an exact number. A couple times a year, maybe.
So it's a couple of times a year
Yeah.
that would have, when you say a couple, do you mean about 2 times a year that?
Maybe 2
police
or
would be
3.
called? I'm asking the same question about fire calls for false alarms. Approximately, on average, about how many times a year would the fire company be called for a false alarm?
Not often. We did not have I think it's called the central alarm. We weren't connected to the fire department. Our fire alarm did go off pretty regularly, but we would reset it, find out what the situation was, and reset it. But we didn't have a central line to the fire company.
You did not have a central line to the fire. How many times do you believe that there were fire calls in a year, on average?
In the building?
In the building,
Yeah.
the fire department would have to respond for a false alarm.
Well, they didn't, because we handled anything that happened in the building. In other words, a central alarm, when our alarm goes off, it connects right to the fire department. We did not have that connection. So if a fire alarm went off in our building, we had everything labeled, everything was monitored, we know what floor it was on, and we would address that.
So you did not have the fire company coming out to,
They did when they were called.
okay, and about how many times a year would they be called?
Very seldom, but we did have the alarms go off.
Okay, but it was very seldom.
Right.
If I told you that there were 13 times that the fire department had to respond from February 10th, 2020 to June 1st, 2020, this year with the child first use, that would be more than happened with the Dankin House use for the elderly, correct?
Yes.
And if I told you that there were approximately 40 times that the police were called from February 10th, 2020 to today, that would be more than when it was an elder care residence, correct?
Correct.
When the resident had the water damage, you agreed that you testified that you began the damage remediation right away,
Child first,
or Child First did?
Correct.
You called Child First and Child First did.
yes,
All right, and this happened in 2016,
beginning of 2016.
the early 2016. Child First didn't move children into the facility until 2019, did they?
Correct.
And you said that you had a local contractor, Dolan, correct?
They did.
Or they did, they had a
Correct.
local contractor,
Correct.
Dolan?
Yes.
Are you aware of them bringing other contractors in when it was taking a long time?
Yes.
And
They had plumbers, they had electricians, they had, somebody that did the fire alarm system, they had somebody that worked on the boiler, there was lots of contractors.
but it took three years to completely remediate the building?
I don't know the exact amount of time, but it took a long time.
Okay, you own the building. Did you go to the building on a regular basis?
I don't, because the type of lease, I do go by occasionally, but I'm not there on a weekly basis. The type of lease we have is not, doesn't warrant that.
But when you would go by the building, you didn't see contractors there every time for 3 years, did you?
Not every time.
And when it was taking a long time, they could have gotten another general contractor in, could they?
I would have no knowledge of anything like that.
3 years.
Were you involved in the insurance settlement as the property owner?
No, with the type of lease we had, I was not. It's called a triple net lease, and that had nothing to do with me.
Were you involved at all with their insurance claim?
No.
Do you know if there was any litigation with the insurance company regarding the settlement or adjustment of the claim?
I do not know that.
I don't have anything further.
Do you guys have any questions?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Just shake his name.
My only question is, you might not know this, but what are the age of the people there now?
I'm thinking they're in their teens,
School age?
yes, as far as I can tell.
All right, so as I said before, the public, if you had questions, so I'm gonna kind of move around. I'll look over here. If anyone has any questions of this witness, who wants to raise your hand? Okay, you might not have been here when we first said, so if you just want to stand up, please, and then you might need to come forward so that he can hear you. Yeah. So we want to come up here? Yeah. We don't have a microphone for you, so I think you have to be up here. So if you just,
My name is Donna Golding.
thank you.
I live at 347 Preston Road.
All right, so if you have questions about his testimony, you can ask questions about his testimony.
Thank you. Could you tell me where the radiator was located that had the leak? Oh, sorry.
It was on the second floor.
How many floors were in the building? Oh, sorry. How many floors were in the building? Is that better? Yeah.
There is 3.
Right. So it was on the second floor, but there was, you went there and there was still extensive damage. How long was the home empty, if I remember correctly? 3 years?
Approximately.
What's the ratio right now, staff to children?
That, I
Don't
don't know exactly.
Do you know now, do the children have free time?
I have no knowledge of that, being staff there. I'm not involved with the Child First, I just,
Okay. Is there a staff represented here?
You're going to testify.
There might be another witness
Okay.
that can answer the question, but you can ask him questions, he doesn't know the answer, he just says, I don't know. But if you're asking to save time, is there a witness from Child First that testify?
There will be a witness from Child First, unfortunately, he was sick this evening, so he'll be here in August.
All right. So,
Figures. I'm sorry, did you get that? Figures.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all the questions I had.
okay,
Thank you.
he's one who's sick. Okay.
Hi, my name is Julia Crossan. I'm a resident on North Galen Hall Road at 127 North Galen Hall Road, which is about 2 houses up from the residential property that we're speaking about. So when you were in charge of the Duncan house, what was the ratio of staff to patients?
it was about 1 to 6 or 7, if I remember it.
So one staff for 6 to 7 patients, correct? At all times throughout 24-hour period?
We had staff that lived in the building.
Okay. So how many staff lived in the building and how many staff were available at all times? So let's break it down from 7 to 3, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 11 a.m., 11 a.m. to 7 a.m. how many stops were there appropriate for each patient?
There was generally
The
two,
resident, sorry.
generally two.
Okay, so 2 available at all times for your residents, correct?
Right.
For 6 to 7 residents at a time. Okay, so you had about 14 or 15 residents?
It varied.
Okay, so what was the maximum amount of residents that you'd have at one time?
Maybe 15 max.
15 was the max,
But
okay?
it wasn't for a long period of time.
Okay, but 15 was the max. So at all periods of time throughout a 24-hour period, there would be 2 stops available to monitor, provide supervision, safety, and care to your residents at all times, correct?
Not during sleeping, not when they're sleeping.
And what hours were those?
Residents were usually in bed 8:30, 9 o'clock.
8:30, 9
Staff
o'clock?
was there till, the second staff person was there until 10.
Okay, was that a mandated time that all your residents needed to be inside the facility?
Can't mandate anything with residents.
Okay,
Like, they're not chained to a bed or any,
okay, so they could come and go as they please with no supervision whatsoever?
no, there was supervision.
Would they have to sign in and out?
Generally, yes.
Okay, so your staff were aware of where all of your residents were at all times, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Move around on this side.
It's Glenn Gibbon, 72 Preston Road. Sir, how many youth are in the facility right now?
I think there's 9 maybe.
9. Okay. And what are their age ranges, to the best of your knowledge? Not just teens, age ranges.
Again, I don't know that.
Okay.
I just own the building.
To your knowledge, are any of the teens allowed to leave that facility unsupervised?
I don't know that either.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to wait until August to find out any of this stuff, another 2 months. Because in the meantime, we got teens walking the street. If you can't answer the questions, I have nothing further.
I think maybe the discrepancy here is this. I just own the building. The type of lease I have, Child First and their affiliates take care of the building and everything 100%. I don't mow the lawn there, I don't pay the taxes there, I don't pay the utility bills. I just own the building with a specific type of lease. And that's my total involvement in it.
My name is Mary Hall, and I live at 440 Preston Road. I live directly 2 houses aside of the Denke house. Can you hear me, sir? Okay, so Paul, you mentioned about the fire trucks going up and down the street. I've lived in my property since 1999. I've been in your Denken house numerous times while Jeannie was staff, while your people were there. So I am very familiar with your building and the people who work there in your building. In that time period, you have mentioned about the fire trucks have gone to Cairn Foundation, you mentioned about the administrative building across the street. I have lived at this property since you have allowed these people to come into this facility. And I hear the fire trucks come twice a day. I call the township and say, excuse me, but I want to know what's going on next door. I have a daughter and a son. So my thing is,
This is a question.
yeah, I'm referring it to his thing about the fire truck. He was saying about the Cairn Foundation. I'm comparing it to the fire truck.
But do you have a question for Mr. Leonardo?
Do I have a question? Yes, he's saying that the fire trucks are related to the same incident of being called all the time. The same as the Karen Foundation. I don't think that's the same thing. Can you honestly say that?
To my knowledge, what my thought pattern is with Karen Foundation, which is, everybody else brought it up, but Karen Foundation, I'm sure they're false alarms, most of them. I haven't seen a fire at Karen Foundation. I wouldn't know that. But when I owned Dankin House, when I was operating the personal care home, I would hear them on a regular basis. And then I'd see them turn around and come back down the street. Unless they're putting out fires in 10 minutes, my assumption, and this is just my assumption, it was a false alarm or something, a monitor that was triggered that had a central location to the fire company. As far as I know, fire companies, if an alarm goes off and there's a central call to their station, they have to respond. We did not have that.
Okay, well, the other question is you said that you had at least 15 people in that building. When I was there in the last few years, I never saw 15 people.
Right.
There was an elderly married couple, there was Susan, and there was another lady and the guy who walked up and down the street smoking all the time. I think his name was John.
It varied all the time. I said up to 15, but it varied.
But you're making it sound to everyone that you had a full staff facility there, and I don't think that's really being honest that you did.
We had staff, but the numbers changed on a regular basis.
I wish Jeannie would have been here tonight to explain everything that you're talking about. Thank you.
Vicky Fisher, 46 Swamp Road. Vicky Fisher, 46 Swamp Road. I just have a question on were you fully aware of what the business did when you sold it or leased it as a great lease deal, by the way? When you, for child services, were you aware of what they were going to provide in the house?
Yes.
Okay. You were fully aware of that? Do you have any other business relationship with them or any type of board with them whatsoever?
Hi, I'm Ann Sisley at 2009 South Gallonville Road. Sisley, with a B. You mentioned that currently there are 9 residents there. What's the maximum number of residents that will be housed there?
Again, I put out a number 9. I don't know for sure. I have nothing to do with that.
What was the maximum capacity of rooms that the Dankin House held? So I'm assuming it will be the same capacity for the use.
Not that I know. That I do not think is true.
You mentioned, the lawyer mentioned that these are children that have disabilities or whatever, but I think all of us have a difference of what a disability is. Exactly, what are these challenges or disabilities that are with these children, and what are they being treated for just randomly?
Again, we'll have a representative for child first here. Unfortunately, he is sick this evening. But he will be available in August to answer these questions that Mr. Leonardo might not know.
All right, thank you.
Marcia, B-A-R-T-H.
Sorry, Mars?
B-A-R-T-H.
Okay, so if I'm not understanding your testimony, you are very similar to, you're comparing, all through your testimony, you compared Dankin House with child flitters, correct?
Yes.
And you're saying they're similar operations?
Yes.
Okay. How many years did you run the Dankin House?
20 years.
20. So in 20 years of you running the Dankin House, you testified that, there was elderly in the Dawkins house, correct? Okay, most folks.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And you also testified that, as much as you know with child first, that they are children, school age, at least school age.
As far as I know.
Okay. Would you agree that that's a difference? No,
In age, that's a difference,
that's
but,
a difference in clientele.
but
That's all I'm asking, yes or no? Is it a difference in clientele, or is it the same?
it's people in need.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, is there a difference in the age groups?
There's a difference in age groups, yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, the difference. Okay, in your 20 years of being at the Dawkins house, you said the police were called maybe one time for criminal activity, kind of. So in 20 years, once, police were called, according to your testimony.
When,
As far as criminal activity, that's what you testified.
okay, if a resident acted out, generally the police came because we would call
That's
an
not what I'm
ambulance.
asking.
We
That's
would,
not what I'm asking. I'm going back to your testimony where you said you called the police once here for them for criminal activity, not for other confusions and all. When she asked you, you said it one time, maybe one time there was like a criminal activity. That was in your.
criminal activity, I don't know if you would call it criminal, but if the resident acted out and it was something we or staff could not handle, the police came. So I don't know if you call that criminal.
I'm just going by your testimony. I'm not putting words in your mouth. You said one time, because I wrote it down when you said one time. Okay. So, and that was in 20 years. In 3 months' time, from March to now, the police have been called up to 40 times? So, is that what was testified, or is it 30-some deducting that? Between 30 and 40 times.
That's what the counselor said. I would
Okay,
not know that
so we're
answer.
looking at 30 to 40 times in 3 months versus one time in 20 years. Is that different or similar?
Different.
Okay. Next question. The fire was never called to the Duncan house. You handled that. You never had a real, per se, call. Never in 20 years at the Duncan house. 13 times child first came in 3 months. Would you say that's similar or different?
You know, I say they have a central line like
I'm
I
not asking
explained.
about the line.
Well,
I'm just saying
that's
the
my
actual
answer.
manpower.
You should be allowed to answer the question.
Okay, if he,
If
okay.
you ask a question,
Okay,
let
if
him
he
answer
doesn't
it.
clarify, okay, then I'll ask if he is. Go ahead.
Again, we did not have a central line. Are you familiar with a central
Oh,
line?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. We did not have that.
I understand that.
Did our alarms go off? Yes, they did. We handled it ourselves. If Child First has a central line or connection with the fire station is obligated, and I don't know if this is a law, maybe the township would know, that they have to respond.
Okay, so
We responded to it because we did not have that connection. So, whatever you're saying, whatever council is saying about the fire alarm going off and the fire department going up there, I'm hearing it now, okay? So, it has, again, I'm not trying to sideswipe your questions, but the operation of Child First is something, their entity. I have no say whatsoever in Child First. I own the building.
I appreciate that.
Beginning and end.
I appreciate that, but your testimony when you started out, you were saying how similar they were, and then like your testimony.
They're similar in that they provide care for individuals with daily care for individuals.
But we can
That
agree,
is the same.
we can
exactly
agree
the
on
same.
one thing, the fire company never used manpower to come out to your building for 20 years. That's a fact of your testimony, correct?
They
They
come
never,
out.
and they come out. And we can attest that, by the questions asked by the other attorneys, that they have been out 13 times in 3 months at the other.
If that's
That's
what
the
she
test.
said.
Okay, so is that similar or different?
Similar or different to when we had it?
Yeah. I'm not
I
sure.
think, yeah, we've kind of read that point a few times, as you can
Yeah, I'm reiterating all the points.
Well, I know, but it's not, once it's asked and answered, it's something new.
Right, okay, well, he didn't answer, he just did, so I'm.
We just, again, Mr. Porter,
Okay,
you don't need to
the next
repeat his
thing-
testimony and have
The
him
next
say it
thing
again.
is the letter of 1995. So that, by the testimony with the attorney who asked you, that was a certificate for the elderly, and certificate now for certificate of compliance for,
So certificate of occupancy. Labor and Industry issued a certificate of occupancy that states that the building is suitable for caring for individuals,
okay, and the code.
which is what it was and what it still is.
And per the codes in that letter of certificate and the letter of certificate for Child First, they're different codes, correct? That's what the lawyer just brought out.
She brought it out, I did not read all page for page
Well,
of
she
codes.
presented it as exhibit, so
She
we can go back to
presented.
that, but that said, there's a difference there, right? They're not similar, right?
I have not read the code that there's a book this thick of codes. So off the top of my head, I couldn't give you that.
As much as we can deduct from what you can't know, that you haven't testified, I respect that, but under the testimony that the public gathered, it appears by the testimony that we heard, that there were less residents at the Donkin House than are currently the resident population at the Child First. And now that's only what we can gather till we get to ask more, but I just want to say that is different, not similar. What I want to ask you is, all these differences, you said how similar you were, and that's about 6 differences. I just failed to see how these are similar.
Hello. My name is Harry Mouse. I own property at 442 Preston Road, property immediately adjacent to Child First. What I see happening is trying to make comparisons with what was the Donkin House and what it is now. Paul, I understand you have nothing to do with it, with Child First, but I just have a few questions for you, doing a comparison, which seems to be what's happening. When you ran the Donkin House, were you ever familiar with people climbing out the second-story window at night, climbing off the porch roof, coming back in with a duffel bag? That ever happened when you ran the Donkin House?
Not that I knew of, no.
Okay. Did any of your residents use extreme profanity in front of neighborhood children, like 5 years old?
I'm not sure that that's being relevant.
No, well, we're doing a comparison here. If we want to do a comparison, I want to know if this ever happened.
Okay. He can answer the question. If you can answer the question about what your residents did or not, I think your question was about, vulgarity.
Using vulgarity in front of 5-year-old children next door?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. Did any of your residents ever stand in the parking lot, or if there wasn't a parking lot there, screaming, "I'm gonna beat you with my fists until you're dead"? Point where the police had to be called?
No, that didn't happen.
Okay. All right, thank you, Paul. I just wanted to clarify some of the comparisons that are being made here.
Do you want to go, Mike? Sure, go. All you. Mike Open? Open, O-P-M-A-N, 108 North Galen Hall Road. Just have a quick question or two here. Was the Donkin House ran as a nonprofit? So you pay property tax on that property?
And so does Child First.
Child First does pay property tax? Okay, thank you, that's all I wanted to know.
Sherry Mills.
Hi, my name is Sherry Mills. I live at 14 Preston Road, and for the last 3 years of the operation of Donkin House, I volunteered there weekly. Paul, you said the average residence is that you had there was 12 to 15, but how many were there the last 1 or 2 years?
8, 9, maybe.
The last 2 years.
I don't remember
It
exactly.
was Priscilla, it was Susan, and it was Darlene. There were 3.
Objection,
Can you
testify.
answer?
There was more than that. Ray and Dot were there.
Not the last year. Wow.
Yeah, they were.
Okay, is it true that somewhere along the last year or so, the building fell into disrepair and you didn't pass the Pennsylvania inspection and you lost your license and therefore you could only go down to 3 residents because 4 or more you had to keep in touch with the state?
No.
For the zone that is true, please research that, okay? The contract that you signed with Child First was in September of 2015, is that correct?
Yes.
When you signed that contract, did you have residents in the home?
They were all moving out. They were gone by September 30th.
I never thought I would ever pull this out of my wallet. Priscilla Faith was the one that I moved out of the home. Do you remember that? I personally took her out of the home and I moved her. This is, on the day Priscilla left, she signed this for Paul. I will give it to you. It says, please apply my security deposit towards my bill for room and board. It is nothing official, but this is what he gave her to sign.
If you want
I still see
why don't you
Priscilla
show it?
regularly.
I think your question was if you remembered when she left.
Well, that
And
was,
if you wanted to look at something,
okay. That was the date she left. I was asking him when the residents left. He said they left by the end of September. My question was the contract signed while there were still residents in the home? Okay, so that would mean yes, they were not in the process of moving out. Do you remember how long you gave the residents to leave?
30 days.
It was not, it was 2 weeks. Were you upfront with the township before you signed this lease? Was the township aware that we were going to change into something different?
In my opinion, we're not changing.
And how long ago was it that you had a resident there that was under the age of 30?
That was quite a few years.
It was quite a few years.
Two females that came in as room.
Okay, so in my recollection, the last 5 years it's been empty. 5 years prior to that, I think Priscilla was the youngest one, 40 years. It's probably been more than 10 years that anybody has been there under the age of
Well, obviously,
30. Is that
it's not
correct?
in the past 5 years because nobody's
That's
been
what
there.
I'm saying. So I'm saying for the purpose of the township, things change in our community over the years. Things are not like they were 20 years ago. So adolescents today are certainly going to be different than adolescents 20 years ago. So my point is it's been a long time since there has been any use in that building, a very long time. Correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, research that. And I'd like the paper back if I may.
Make a copy of it.
oh,
Don,
You have to go back out there. I can't hear you all the way back there.
I'll make you hear me. Donna Golding, 347 Preston Road. You had said that, you've heard sirens going past the building, that we're headed to Karen.
Mhm.
How do you know for a fact?
Stop, is that an answer?
Uh-huh.
Yes, you said,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
How do you know for a fact that if they're going up to Galen, they're going to Karen? There's lots of homes and other things up there. They could have been going anywhere. Is that not correct?
They could have been,
So they're not necessarily headed to Karen.
but usually when you hear the siren stop, they've reached the location.
They could have stopped at the house next door. They could have stopped at the property across the street. They could have stopped at the Mennonite church. They could have stopped anywhere prior to actually getting to Karen. Is that not correct?
That's a possibility.
Thank you.
Janine McGrath, 735 Furnace Road. My first question is the residents that were at the Donkin House when you ran it, how did they come to be there? Was it voluntary?
We can't force anybody to come.
No, I mean, did you offer it up to the public? If I wanted to go and live there, could I have? Was it a voluntary entrance into the facility?
Generally, family members will present that their parents were no longer able to take care of themselves, or and they're looking for a higher level of care.
So it was a choice to have a family member come live there, and I'm assuming they paid. I'm assuming they did. Now I heard there was a security deposit. So they paid and voluntarily lived there, correct?
Well, elderly people don't necessarily.
Someone in their family. It was
Right.
a choice. In other words, it wasn't mandated.
They could have been from a hospital, discharged from a hospital, that they weren't allowed to go home because of their condition, and therefore they were forced to go into some type of higher level of care.
So
Does
if
that
they
answer
were,
which
so if they were placed there, it was by a care facility.
could be
A
a
hospital.
family, it
Family.
could be social worker, it could be a number of different scenarios.
So if I say to you that the mission statement of Child First per GuideStar, which is a nonprofit oversight organization, is to operate small group residences, supervised independent living residences, and treatment foster care for children referred by county offices of children and youth services and juvenile probation. Children come for short periods of time while their family circumstances are ready for their return. Would you say that that would be a difference in initial intake from when you ran Donkin House?
Some social workers said that the residents were not capable of being on their own. They had issues, psychological issues. You know, we had many like that. I mean, too many, we had several like that.
But they were not referred by probation or any of the criminal.
Not that I knew of.
Okay.
No.
And my second question relates to the certificates of compliance, which I know the attorney referenced and are in the packets. They are, for anyone who hasn't printed out the application, they are contained there. And I know you said you didn't get a chance to read them, but if I read these two descriptions to you that they were issued under, I'm just curious to see if you can see why some of us here feel that this is not the same operation. So the certificate of compliance that was issued to, sorry, I stapled pages together and I shouldn't have, that was issued to Donkin House, which was for the period of 14 to 15, was to provide personal care home. Total number of persons which may be cared for at one time may not exceed 31. And it was issued under PA Code Chapter 2600, which is labeled personal care home. The certificates of compliance, there are two of them, for Child First, were issued to provide residential services, community-based, dependent, and delinquent child residential. The total number of persons may be cared for one time may not exceed 6 on each floor. And they were issued under PA Code Chapter 3800, which is entitled Child Residential and Day Treatment Facilities. Do you understand how we may think that that is not a same use, a personal care home versus treatment for delinquents?
I hear what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
And, okay, I don't see
anybody else.
And as do I.
I'm sorry.
We also would have redirect.
Oh, okay. You gotta keep voice like it.
I'm sorry, we also would have redirect.
So, and, yeah, go ahead, your redirect, if you have any questions then, when you're finished with the redirect.
And may I just have a moment?
Sure. And are you okay? 5 minutes recess then, or? Yeah, you just tell me whenever you're ready, whenever you need it.
She's gonna confirm with her.
Yeah. If you need time now, we'll just do it, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was asking for,
Yeah.
correct.
Sure, yeah. Give you a break. It was an hour and a half.
It's a shame. Child first guy couldn't be.
Sorry, I don't have any further questions.
Right.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Sorry, with the mask on, it's difficult to hear.
I just have a couple of follow-up questions on the problem. Mr. Lenardi, you said that you believe that, the facility was well-run by Child First. What made you believe that the facility was well-run?
Just the fact that the caregivers that are there were engaged with the, I don't know if it's the right term, we call them residents, but the caregivers were very involved. One was sitting at a table talking to one of them. One was getting his hair cut. Another one was in another activity room with one of the kids watching TV. They just seemed to gravitate towards the kids. And I think the kids, from what I could see, are gravitating towards the staff. Again, my experience when I went there, again, this is my experience. The kids were polite to me, they were courteous, they were friendly. I'm not saying that what the neighborhood has seen, I'm not saying that you're mistaken or lying. That has been my experience.
You yourself are not a resident of the neighborhood, correct? You own the property, but under a triple net lease, Child First, right?
Right.
And you're not a resident of the neighborhood?
I used to be. I used to live on the property.
Right, but you're a taxpayer in the township.
Correct.
But not a resident of the neighborhood anymore. And you yourself said when it came to the repairs after the, water damage, that you weren't there that often, correct?
Correct. That was, under our lease agreement, that was something that Child First undertook. But I did have communication with them. And I knew that there was, initially, a lot of time spent trying to get the, documentation that the township required. Then there was the flood, just drying the place out went on for quite a while.
But you're not, you said though, when you were testifying about remediation, that you were not there that often, you come by there sometimes. But
Correct.
So same with the interaction with the residents. You would see something occasionally, but not on a daily basis.
Not on a daily basis, there'd be no reason for me to be there.
Okay, now, you said you're still a taxpayer in the township as a member of the property. Aren't you concerned with the number of police and fire calls?
Yes, but up until tonight, I didn't know how many there were.
No, you did not know. Okay, now you do know. Are you concerned about that number?
Yes, I believe that Child First is making an effort to correct things from what I can tell. I mean, just talking with attorneys and everything else.
This is the first you're hearing of it.
No, I did hear about it, and I did talk to Sean one time, so I did have knowledge of it. 2 months ago, Sean, maybe?
Trump can't testify.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Not to anybody else. Ted, do you want to take a break now, or do you want to switch to the next one? You're good? Okay. I should say, actually, I didn't miss anybody, I didn't see anybody. Okay.
Good evening. I'm going to call actually Ms. O'Rourke as the next witness because she had some interactions back in 2015 related to the property. So, Ms. O'Rourke, do you want to, you're a member of the bar, but if you want her to be sworn in, she can be sworn in. You want her to be sworn in?
I don't think it's really necessary, but if you want to.
Okay. Ms. O'Rourke, and I'm going to try and share the mic here. Can you state your name for the record?
Sheila O'Rourke.
And state your occupation.
I'm an attorney with Gibble Craiglang House.
And obviously, our firm has been working with Child First, and you've worked with them in the past, correct?
That's correct.
Can you describe to the members of the zoning board and the audience what you did in 2015 related to the property that's the subject of this application?
So in 2015, we were assisting Child First with moving onto the property. And there was a question of whether sprinklers would need to be installed on the property. So we were assisting with that question.
Okay, and did you research the issue regarding whether sprinklers would be required?
I did research that issue, and what I found was that the property had been used as a residential care facility since the 1940s. We discovered the occupancy permit from 1980 for the large personal care home use, and it was our position that that was the occupancy permit that was also applied to Child First use because they're the same residential care home use.
And was that already reviewed as Exhibit A5? Is that
correct?
I have two additional exhibits here. Okay. So for the record, I have what's marked as Exhibit A11 and A12, which I realize is out of order, but we had anticipated a witness from Child First who unfortunately could not make it because of sickness. So we are going out of order here.
Hey, Mark, I mean, there's only one person from Child First that can testify. That seems odd for a big operation. Should I ask him that question?
What's that?
It's a big operation. I can't believe there's only one person that could testify for it.
Well, that's a fair question, but we have been working with this gentleman the entire time.
We're supposed to be on the record.
Yeah.
It was an off the record question.
Okay, Ms. O'Rourke, I've handed you what's been marked as Exhibit A11. Can you just describe to the members of the board what that is?
This is a letter that I sent to the person who was the building code inspector for the township at the time, describing that we did not believe that the building needed to be sprinkled because the 1980 use and occupancy permit applied.
Okay. And who is this addressed to?
Joseph P. Christmas was the building code inspector at the time.
And let me direct your attention to Exhibit A12. And can you describe to the board what that refers to?
So this is a follow-up letter that I sent to Mr. Crispin dated December 11th, 2015, providing additional documentation regarding the sprinkler issue.
There are a number of attachments to it. What do those attachments generally refer to? Is it just information essentially confirming your letter, the position in your letter?
Yes, it would be exhibits that support the position of the letter.
Did the building inspector then render any kind of determination on the sprinkler issue?
Yes,
And what was the determination?
the building code officer agreed that no sprinklers would be required because the use that Child First was proposing fit under the same use and occupancy permit as was issued in 1980. And therefore, from a technical perspective, the previous version of the building code would apply.
And just to clarify, there's, A5 is a certificate of occupancy, correct?
Correct.
And when you look at A6, that's a certificate of compliance, correct?
Correct.
Certificate of occupancy is issued by what state administrative agency?
Department of Labor and Industry.
And the certificate of compliance is issued by what state administrative agency?
The agency that is now known as the Department of
And the Department of Labor and Industry regulates building code issues, correct?
Yes.
Now, based on the determination by the township's own building code official, did you understand the township's position to be that Child's First proposed use was a continuation of the pre-existing non-conforming residential care use on the property? And that,
Yes.
and was that then, relayed to Child First, who proceeded then with the work on the property?
Yes.
All right, those are all the questions I have for Mr. Rourke.
Does anyone on the board have questions? Mary Lynn, do you have any questions?
I will, yes. Attorney O'Rourke, do you agree that the letter to and from Mr. Crispin refer to the Uniform Construction Code and the Construction Code Act, and more specifically, the International Building Code requirements?
Those are part of the letter.
And you agree that your correspondence of November 13th, 2015, and December 11th, 2015, does not make any reference to the township zoning ordinance?
I do not believe that it does.
I'd like you to turn to Appendix C in Exhibit A12. Do you agree it's a letter from Dan R. Hutchell of Technicon Enterprises to Mr. Leonardo dated June 23rd, 1995?
Yes.
And isn't it correct that in these two exhibits of your correspondence with Mr. Preston, that, this is the only reference to the zoning ordinance.
I haven't extensively reviewed the documents in a while.
Okay, you're presenting them as an exhibit though, and, would you agree though that that is the only document in this package that deals with zoning as opposed to state, regulation with DHS or state regulation with the Department of Labor and Industry?
There is a letter from Mr. Leonardo that refers to the zoning as well, but I believe that's the only reference.
Right, but this is the letter from Dan Hustle, who was the code enforcement officer at the time from Technicon. And is it correct?
Wait, I'm not sure that's accurate. It's different.
Okay, I'm looking at the June 23rd, 1995 letter, which
I think it's Appendix E. Appendix E, I think there was just a little mix-up in terms of what Mr. Work was referring to.
If you could ask me the question again.
if you can look at, Appendix E and a letter dated, December 4th, 2015, that was a letter from Mr. Leonardo, to Mr. Chrisman.
Yeah.
Okay, and that simply verifies the use of the property, correct?
Yes, which would correspond to this zoning.
And then there is a letter dated June 23rd, 1995, which is actually from Dan Huskell of Technicon Enterprises as the code enforcement officer, and that specifically addresses zoning.
That's correct.
And that refers to, first of all, zoning as R3, correct?
Yeah.
And that refers to zoning, from prior to 1974, and Duncan House being used as a nursing or convalescent home, correct?
That is what the letter says.
And from 1995 up until 2015, the building was used as a nursing or convalescent home, correct?
The building was used as a personal care home.
Or a personal care home,
The building was used as a personal care home for the elderly.
but it was used for the elderly up until 2015, correct?
And apparently also for younger residents on occasion.
Right, but its emphasis was as a care home for the elderly, for Mr. Leonardo's testimony, is that right?
Yes, that was the general population.
And you're familiar with the Southwestern Berks zoning ordinance, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that the current use of Duncan House right now is either a group home or a group lodge per your application?
I'm gonna object, it calls for a legal opinion.
Well, Mr.
No, she was
Wilson,
called as
attorney.
a fact witness. I'm gonna object.
Well, under the rules, it's what you're, it goes for the application, then it's really a fact question.
Well, she's asking for an opinion about the zoning ordinance. That's clearly a legal conclusion. She wants to ask.
So then, you want to offer as to provide an expert opinion?
Well, I'm simply asking the question about the zoning ordinance and whether or not there are different definitions between the group home or group lodge use and the nursing home use.
We'll stipulate that the ordinance has definitions, whatever they are. I mean, it's a written document that is part of the record.
So you will stipulate that there is a different definition between group home and group lodge and a nursing home in section 201 of the Southwestern Berks zoning ordinance.
Assuming that that is what is in the ordinance, Sure, the ordinance says what it says.
Okay,
We're not,
that's fine, if we have that stipulation that they are two different, or three different definitions.
the definitions will say what they say. So, you know, the legal implication of that is, I think, beyond the scope of the ordinance.
Right, but you will stipulate to their different definitions and different uses.
I will stipulate to that the definitions in the ordinance are what they are. I don't have them in front of me, but it's a written document, so if there's a different definition, then there's a different definition.
And I'll direct the question back to Ms. O'Rourke then. Do you agree that the opinion being rendered by Dan Hutzel was related to the use of the property as a nursing convalescent home?
His letter says what it says.
And do you agree that it used the word nursing convalescent home?
Yes.
I don't have anything further.
Sorry, okay.
Are you raising your hand or? Oh, yeah. Yep. I wasn't sure if you were raising your hand or just.
I can?
Sure.
I have a question.
State your name, please.
Sorry, Mary Hall. And it's Holl. I have a question. You are the one who went to the property to check, if this was suitable for your company to take over, correct?
I'm sorry,
Are you not the one, you were talking about, are you the one who went to see if it's suitable, like you were talking about sprinklers?
Let me just explain. Ms. O'Rourke is an attorney in our office,
Okay,
and we represent Child First.
okay,
There was a question of whether they had installed sprinklers. It
Okay.
was a legal question, not necessarily a question of the design of the
Can I-
building.
Can I ask a question about the building? Whether you find it safe for the children or not? Is that a question I can ask?
Well, it's beyond the scope of her testimony. There may be another witness, but Ms. O'Rourke would not have been part of the actual reconstruction or design. It was simply to determine, the use of the property and whether sprinklers need to be installed. I mean, you can ask the question, but I'm not sure she'll be able to
Well, my
answer it.
question is there's a third floor, and what precautions do you have? Are you having residents on that third floor?
She doesn't work for Child First, so she would have no knowledge. And
Well,
I
I can't
understand there's
answer
some
that.
frustration that somebody from Child First isn't here, I get that, but
Okay, I'm just concerned, there's supposed to be children at this facility, and I'm trying to figure out what is safe for them. And I see wooden stairs outside, there's no metal, if there's a fire on that side, how do they get out?
this is not the witness for those questions.
Okay.
I appreciate your
Right,
concerns,
that's
but
just my concern, I just
Understood.
thought you were bringing up sprinklers, so I thought that was one of the concerns that would be a precaution for children to be in that building.
Sherryville, Preston Road. Before the lease was signed, was the building in fact inspected? Somebody from Child First go in and say, oh, yes, we're interested in this building, so they actually, somebody physically saw the building? That would typically be what would happen before you make an agreement with them, is that correct?
I was not involved
No,
in that
not you,
process.
but typically that's, somebody from Child First would have been in there to see the condition of the building before signing the lease.
Again, I do not have my own knowledge of, I do not have my own knowledge of that.
So it could be possible that nobody saw the building before signing the lease.
she doesn't know. She wasn't there.
Okay, at this point in time, all the repairs that needed to be made, since we don't know if anybody saw the repairs needed to be made, but at this point in time, all the repairs that are needing to be made are being paid for by Child First?
She doesn't know. Again, it's an objection. She doesn't have firsthand knowledge about what Child First did to the property. This witness was simply called to testify as to her interactions with the building code official at the township.
Okay, that would be a question for child first then.
That's right.
Okay.
Do you have any redirect?
I think there's another,
I didn't see it. You guys gotta give me a nudge, I missed somebody.
Since your testimony is that you talked with officials about the sprinkler system, the ultimate answer, did you require a sprinkler, and do you have a sprinkler system in the building, since you inquired about that?
A sprinkler was, the building code inspector determined that a sprinkler was not required,
Based on what you said your use would be, correct?
based on the use and the evidence that we presented to the building code inspector.
So I'm trying to understand as a lawyer, and I don't mean this personally, but why would you consider that a roof home from the 1940s, the stipulations on that would apply in 2013, especially with a sprinkler system? I mean, I know that, and I'm not a lawyer, but if I go to build something today, it would take over something that was running from the 1940s to 2015, but there's definitely not, I mean, you're not talking 5 years down the road, you're talking 75 years. That just puzzled me why a lawyer would say, well, it didn't apply to them, so it don't apply to us, especially something with a sprinkler system with the safety.
The technical issue was whether the use had changed. And if the use had not changed, then the same use and occupancy permit that was issued for Donkin House in the 1980s could also be used by child first. And that was the determination that was
brought
made.
me to the next question, which, so even if we take it from 1980 instead of 1940, we're still talking 35 years difference. I built buildings, I've been through probably 50 settlements. I can tell you, as a lay person, I would expect the laws to change in 35 years, definitely in 75.
I do just have one, unless there's other questions.
I didn't see anybody.
One or two on redirect.
I didn't see anybody, so, yeah, go ahead.
Ms. O'Rourke, I know you usually don't sit in that seat, so it's a little awkward, but let me direct your attention to Appendix F to Exhibit A12. And just so everybody in the audience knows what we're talking about, this is the letter that you sent to the building code official dated December 11, 2015, basically confirming the use had not changed, correct?
Correct.
And you attached to your letter, Appendix F, this article that you referred to earlier with our first witness, correct?
Yes.
And just be sure you keep your voice up.
Yes.
And do you recall the date of this article? When this was published, if you know?
I know that it must have been after 1995, because Mr. Leonardo was the owner of the property.
Okay. And does this article describe, when you look at the second column on the first page, if you go back a page, it says Donkin House. What does it say right below that, in terms of describing it? Is it called a personal care home?
You are looking at the paragraph under Donkin House.
Does it say a personal care home?
Yes.
Okay. And if you go to the last paragraph, is it described as a personal care home as a place to live independently yet have assistance available when you need it? And it also goes through and describes how this property was used.
Yes.
And just kind of looking through this, the terminology of convalescent home, that's not really the terminology that's used in describing the property, right?
Correct.
So the convalescent home terminology that's an outdated kind of term, correct?
Yeah.
So in terms of the use, you did submit a number of documents that confirmed the testimony we heard this evening about what was going on there.
Correct.
That's the only other redirect that I have.
I don't have recall.
Okay. I don't see anybody else. And my understanding is that was your witnesses for tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, we go back on our record, we have, exhibits, I have B, 1, 2, 3, and 4, A, 1 through 7, and then A, 11 and 12, and Township 1. If there are no objections to those exhibits, we'll omit to those exhibits. So hearing no objection, they'll be admitted. Then I just want to announce that we will reconvene on July 15th. Wednesday night, July 15th, 6 p.m. in this location. We're going to keep the time reserved on August 26th also. So there's nothing else, then we'll, again, reconvening July 15th, same location at 6 p.m. And then we'll off the record.